standard you set for yourself suddenly fell apart? What if your success, certainty, even your sense of self vanished in a heartbeat? Not a stumble, a hard reset, where everything that wants to find you no longer does. That happened to me. Maybe you felt that too. Raise your hand if something's ever happened to you that felt completely unfair. Keep your hands up if it's something where you did nothing wrong and it's something you had zero control over. Yeah, me too. What I didn't appreciate, that standard that I'd lived by, it only works when life follows the script. And a life that's meant for a perfect world isn't much of a standard, now is it? Because sooner or later, something always gives. You've already felt that too, I can see. Not the way I did, but in your own lives, you already know what it's like when things don't happen the way they're supposed to. It was Saturday after Thanksgiving 2011. Blue skies, bright sun, unseasonably warm. My buddies and I were cycling from our homes nearby in Bergen County to Lower New York State. 50 miles round trip. Nothing out of the ordinary. We did it all the time. I was a good runner, better cyclist, and a lousy golfer. On a bike, I felt free, fast, alive. Anybody here ride bicycles? You ride with a helmet, I hope, because if I hadn't, I wouldn't be here today. We were almost home, just a few miles to go, and I was in a good place. I had built a rewarding career, my body was strong, and I was looking forward to getting back to my wife Betsy and my 3 teenage daughters. Up ahead, an SUV was approaching. It drifted across the center line. A drowsy driver, the police report would later say. A drowsy driver? This was 1:06 on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. How does someone fall fast asleep? My eyes were locked on Zach's rear wheel. I was just inches behind him, drafting in a pace line. Does anyone know what drafting is? That's that image when you see cyclists, one after another, right behind the one in front of them. Have you ever seen that image when maybe there are scenes from the Tour de France? And that's because if you're right behind them, it's you're getting the benefit of them dragging you with you. And that's quite a big benefit. All of a sudden, Zach shouted, I looked up, and I saw the SUV barreling at me. I'm thinking it's going to swerve back into its lane, right? But it didn't swerve. He kept coming. A guardrail on the right, no shoulder, no room. Keep your head up. I thought to myself, protect your head. And that's the last thing I remember. In the ER, my femur, my thigh bone was sticking out of my leg and my spine was crushed. In those first days, I flatlined twice. Flatline means your heart stopped. No one, none of the surgeons thought I'd survive. In case you're wondering, I did. I woke weeks later in a fentanyl fog. Everyone was filling in the blanks. And when they got to the part where they said, permanently paralyzed, I couldn't process it. It was an endless parade of doctors coming and going, day and night, and that annoying beep of the machines. I can still hear it. My body was broken. My career was gone. I didn't just lose mobility. I lost the future I believed in. I had taken pride in being the provider for the family. Now I was dependent on others, particularly my wife Betsy, for nearly everything. Clearing the snow, reaching for a glass, preparing a meal. Although to be fair, no one's ever missed my cooking skills. I made a mental list of all the things I'd now never do. Walk my daughters down the aisle. Wander in the woods with my grandkids to be whenever that happened. Or just stand up and hug Betsy. One day, I passed another guy in a wheelchair. He offered a friendly hello, but me, I couldn't acknowledge him. I didn't want to be a part of his club. The truth is, that world, the world that I had wandered through so confidently, it was now a landscape of barriers. And the thought of re-entering it terrified me. And that's where I stayed for a while. Until one day, I was sitting in that same easy chair, as if I'd been glued to it. And I muttered what I've been saying repeatedly from the day I came home. Why me? Why did this happen to me? Betsy, who'd been so incredibly patient, looked up, put down her magazine, and she finally said what needed saying. Why you? Why not you, Ron? Bad stuff happens to people all the time. What makes you so special? She caught my eye. If you want to stay stuck in that chair, I'll care for you. But this family needs to move on. And she walked away. Well, that wasn't the tender, loving care I was looking for. And it is what I needed to hear when I couldn't get there myself. In my gut, I knew she was right. She was 1,000% right. And things do happen. Has anybody ever had somebody tell you something you didn't want to hear, but it was something that helped you understand something? Something that stung at the time, but something that helped you? Yeah, that's what happened to me. Betsy's point was clear. What now? Why me? Why me keeps you stuck. What now is what moves you forward. The difference is choice. And I had seen what happens when that choice is all stripped away. 25 years ago, I was working at my desk at Lehman Brothers. I heard a thunderous bang. I looked out my window, I saw a burning hunk of an airplane wing. I looked up. I saw smoke billowing from up high in the North Tower. 17 minutes later, when the second plane hit, we knew we were under attack. We evacuated immediately. Outside was chaos. The air was filled with smoke, ash, and debris. And something else. Something horrific. I looked up at the nightmare as people were jumping from 90 floors up. As fire closed in on them, they were forced into a choice no one should ever face. No control, no warning, nowhere to go. People just like me, with families just like mine. Families that would have done anything to have their father, mother, spouse back with them, even in a wheelchair. That image, it haunted me for years. And decades later, it finally spoke. They had no choice. I did. I'd been wasting what those in the towers never had a second chance. This isn't the life I pictured. But it is life just the same, and it's mine to live. My turning point was realizing the choice and the power was mine all along. My old gold standard, which was career, money, physical strength, it was gone and it wasn't coming back. I had to create something new. A new gold standard. One not based on what I'd lost, but on what I could still build. The first one is grit. Refusing to quit. You know that feeling when you're in the midst of something really hard, something that with all your might you want to give up on, you want to walk away, but you don't. That's your grit. Has anyone ever felt that? Years ago, I survived a 50-foot rock climbing fall. I broke my jaw, shoulder, ribs, back. I came to a few minutes later dangling from a rope. My belayer, my climbing partner, he was a guy I had just met that morning. And to this day, I have no idea who he is. But he pulled the rope in. He saved my life. I was back at it 10 weeks later, testing my limits. That kind of snapback, it makes you feel invincible. Well, until it doesn't. My challenges today are visible. You see the chair. But each of you, all of us, we're all carrying something. For most of my life, grit meant brute force, snapback strength, outworking the problem. But grit is more than that. It's not always something dramatic. For me, today, it's simple, ordinary choices. The decision to work out again, do the chores I could, re-engage, recommit as a husband and a father. But I bet you know that feeling too. That's your grit. It lives in your decision to do extra math problems if arithmetic is giving you trouble. Or the extra dribbling and shooting practice you do to make sure you're best on the basketball court or the soccer field. Does anybody have some examples of things where they show, you're showing your grit? Things that you keep doing even though it's hard, but you know you need to do it. Any sport, any activity, anything. Come on.
I go to my fencing club every day. I practice for 3 hours, so.
That's a commitment. Excellent. One more example.
I do 2 sports that are like full-time.
Right, that's a lot too. Great. Anyone else? What I didn't appreciate back when I had that climbing accident, real strength isn't walking away free and clear. It's what you do when you can't. And that's a lesson I've learned the hard way. And that's where a new gold standard begins. It's not in controlling what happens, because clearly we can't do that, but it's choosing to shape what remains. Okay. Opportunity. Own the reset. Next week. There's a Japanese practice called kintsugi. When pottery breaks, it isn't discarded, it isn't thrown away, it's repaired with lacquer mixed with gold. The cracks, they're not hidden, they're honored, and the piece is considered more beautiful for having been broken. What a beautiful concept. I didn't know the term for it at the time, but I was living it. That accident, it broke me. It exposed my fault lines and maybe revealed a stronger core I hadn't seen before. And once you see the cracks, you can rebuild. You know that feeling where you think everybody's got it together and you're the only one that's broken? You ever have that feeling? Well, Kintsugi says, you've got it all backwards. The cracks, they're not a problem. That's where your growth lives. The places where you struggle, where things don't happen the way they're supposed to. When life doesn't go as planned, those aren't flaws. That's reality. And that's where the gold goes. The cracks aren't hidden. They're your story, and you're richer for it. Opportunity and adaptability, that shows up in everything I do. Even when I drive. In order for me to drive, I have to drive up to the car, hop into the driver's seat, take my chair, flip it to its side, take one wheel off, flip it again, take the other wheel off, take the frame up over me onto the passenger seat, do the same with one wheel and then the other wheel. And then I'm in the car and I drive with hand controls. Left thumb for gas, left hand for brake. And that's what I did today and every day. Because for me, independence is a declaration. I'm still here. So what's your version of hopping into a car from a wheelchair? Because sometimes what got you here won't get you where you need to go. After my accident, I was forced out of my comfort zone again and again. It's unsettling, but it's how we grow. Does anybody have any examples of where they had to do something that took them out of the area where they were comfortable and you learned a new skill in the process?
I picked up basketball last year, and then I kept on practicing, and this year I made the national team. So.
Awesome.
So I skied snowboard and I kind of started to learn how to snowboard again, like 2 years ago. And like last year we went into this like huge like bully with like a lot of powder. And like I learned how to like ski it for like the first time.
Great example. Anybody over here? Okay.
Over the summer, like I used to play soccer, but I decided to try to teach myself how to do backflip, and now I can do backflip.
Great examples. If we don't push ourselves out of our comfort zone, we don't get better at things. And that's what adaptability is all about. It's not giving up on who you were, it's figuring out who you still are. Learning. I spent decades in environments thinking if something wasn't working, I pushed harder and harder still. For me, that was what it was about. And I was good at it. And then I went back to the slopes. I used to be a fantastic skier. Not just strong, coordinated, instinctive. The kind of skier who could take any run from top to bottom without ever losing rhythm. When I first got back on the slopes in an adaptive monoski, I thought, I'm great at this. I'm going to conquer it just like I always have, with natural ability and sheer force of will. Every time I started to fall, I try to outmuscle the fall. I push hard against these outriggers, trying to force the mountain to bend my will. After 3 days, my shoulders were screaming in this chair. My shoulders are my engine. They're my most critical asset for getting out of bed, for driving, for my daily life. And that's when it hit me. My instinct to double down, that wasn't strength. It was the very thing that would cost me everything. Sometimes learning isn't about mastering something new. It's about recognizing that what made you successful no longer does, and having the discipline to let it go. So I walked away from skiing, not because I couldn't do it, but because the cost was too high. Is anybody had that feeling where you had to give up on something, not because you were quitting, but because you might be hurting yourself and putting yourself at risk in the process? Can anyone think of any examples of something that you gave up on something?
So, my kneecap, part of my kneecap was falling off, and I had to give up football for it, and I'm not as good as I used to.
That's a perfect example, and that's just like me. It was something I loved, something I really wanted to do, but I understood for the greater good I was going to put myself at risk if I kept doing it. When I first went back to work in a wheelchair, I was terrified. I wondered, would people see the wheelchair before they saw me? And for a while, I let that question hang over me. But eventually, I understood. People would only take me as seriously as I took myself. And if they didn't see me that way, that was on them. Maybe you've had that feeling too. Not about a wheelchair, but maybe you're worried that you're carrying something that people see before they see you. Here's what I've learned. Belonging isn't about giving up and hiding something that you feel vulnerable about. It's about showing up as you actually are and trusting that that's enough. People that you need to impress will always see the person. And the people that don't, that's on them. Drive. Grit can get you going, but grit without purpose, that can be struggle for struggle's sake. Purpose is what makes the fight worthwhile. My purpose, it's no longer in an office tower in New York City. It's here. It's here in this room sharing what I've learned. That's what drives me now. It's also in stillness. I'm a power rower. Flat water, blue skies, back in nature. I'm also a hand cyclist. I've completed the New York City Marathon 3 times, all in under 3 hours. But I have to tell you, the real win, it wasn't at the finish line. It was riding side by side with my longtime cycling buddy, Zach, again, for the first time since the accident. Him on 3 wheels, him on 2 wheels, me on 3. But still side by side. I didn't focus on my limitations that day, just on how far I've come. My friends like Zach have come to get me. When everything else changed, that didn't. Finding purpose also brought humility. Does anyone know what humility is? Humility is not having all the answers and being okay with that. Humility was, and I have to admit sometimes still is, a tough pill to swallow. Especially someone like me who thought not asking for help was a sign of weakness. It takes strength to accept help gracefully. It isn't easy to have others do for you things you once did for yourself without losing a sense of who you are in the process. But that humility, it made me more present and a better friend, father, and husband. I've learned to own the life I'm living. Not the one I had, not the one I wished for, but the one right here in front of me. Grit can get you going through hell. But purpose gives you a reason not to stay there. And that was all tested in a way I never expected. A few years ago, I was training for the head of the Charles, the biggest rowing race in the country. It's held in Boston. 2 weeks before the Charles, I had a training race in Hartford. Just before the start of the race, I capsized. You have to picture this. There I am, strapped in, underwater, upside down, under the hull, and my strap is gone. I'm struggling, and I can't get free. I'm thrashing, and I'm panicking. And then for a moment, I stopped, I thought, Ron, maybe I'll just stay here. I've lost so much already. My legs don't work, my health's a mess, my career is gone. Maybe I'll just stay here. In that cold water, through the fear, the doubt, the self-pity, I realized I still want to live. I still want to live. So I twisted my head just enough to get my head above water, grab some air, fall back down. Twisted up just enough to grab some air, fall back down. Again and again, there I was fighting for my life once more. And I kept fighting until help finally came and pulled me out. Afterwards, some people said to me, Ron, maybe you better hang up those oars, find something safer. I don't know what, maybe basket weaving or something. So yeah, I could have stayed on shore, but then that SUV, the one that hit me, it would have had the last word. I row with pontoons to prevent capsizing, and yet I still flipped. You can manage risk, you can hedge it, but you can't eliminate it. So 2 weeks later, with my entire rowing club cheering me on, I got back on the water for the head of the Charles, and I won a silver medal. No, it wasn't gold, but it was still a win. Not for the podium, but for how I chose to live. And that's when I knew I wasn't broken. I was rebuilding. Five years ago, my daughter Stephanie got married. And I walked her down the aisle. It wasn't graceful. She looked radiant, and I was there for it every unsteady step of the way. I had braces on my legs and sort of moved my hips and shuffled my legs forward. It wasn't the same, but it certainly was something. 2 years later, Steph gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, Peyton, and then a baby boy, Shane. I became a grandfather, and I was here for that too. And then a month later, we threw a wild 100th birthday party for my father-in-law. Here he is at 100 years, with his great-granddaughter at 100 hours, and I was here for them. I could see that my girls, they no longer needed my help with algebra or soccer practice, but they still needed me to teach them something far more important. How to handle whatever life throws at them. Relationships and community, they were there for me when I couldn't stand up on my own. Does anybody have an example of someone you've been there for when they needed you most, or someone who's been there for you when you needed it most?
So, my friend Mikey Cardella, he got surgery. It's today actually. Having surgery now. I was with him yesterday. We went to the mall and I got him some stuff.
That's a very good example. Anybody else who's been there for a friend of theirs?
It's not really like a friend, but like I was skiing a few years ago, and it was like right before the map closed, and my brother and his friend were laughing, and then like I hit a tree and I was sucked into like the well, and I was like kind of screaming, and then like these like random two people like helped me get out, and I just like it made me feel a lot safer like better about the situation.
That's good. I have to tell you that relationships, friendships, family and friends, that's not a small thing. That's everything. So when I think about what pulled me through, It was grit, opportunity, learning, and drive. And that spells gold. Long ago, I fell 50 feet from a rock, and I survived. I also walked away from the dust cloud of 9/11, one of the lucky ones. And then I lost the ability to walk it alone. And finally, after everything I've been through, I found myself alone underwater, thinking about letting go. But I didn't. I clawed my way to the surface. I took a breath, and another, and another. Adversity will come for all of you. When it does, you'll have a choice to stop or keep fighting forward. I chose to fight, not just for myself, but for the people I love and the life I still have to live. People, things will happen to you that aren't fair. People will let you down. But that's not a reason to stop moving forward. Look, I didn't survive all this to stand still, and neither will you. So when your time comes, and it will, remember this. The question isn't why me, it's what now. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Come on.
How did it feel underwater? It was scary.
It was really scary. It was very scary because I didn't know what to expect. I was strapped in and I couldn't catch a breath. And I have to tell you, one positive thing is while I was fighting, I was thinking, even after all of that, you still want to do it. You still want to push forward. You're still giving everything you've got to make it happen and to keep going.
What was kind of like a way, like at the time when you lost your ability to move? What was like what was the thing that you like you were driving yourself to help? Like, I mean, like, what was driving you to like be like
To keep going?
yeah?
No. I mean, I hope it was clear that there was quite a long time where I didn't have that drive. And I was feeling really sorry for myself. And I wanted to bring that out because I want you to understand that something my father told me when I was young is that big people are just like little people, but older. We have the same fears, the same misconceptions, the same concerns. And my life was going really well, and it was really hard for me to say, this was not a minor thing. It wasn't going to get better on its own. But I had a family and I had responsibilities. The thing I said about my kids needed to see me show them the strength on how they need to live. And it was much more than a math problem. It was how to live your life with grace and with strength. And that's the hardest thing I've ever had to learn. And I can see that I can have an impact on so many, and that's what drives me.
How old are you?
I'm 66.
Good to hear.
In the competition you got silver, how many people competed in it?
I think there were maybe 10.
Did you ever have any contact with the driver, and how did you make peace with him? Like, how did you let go of your feelings for him?
It was a woman. And it was a very strange thing because I never had any contact at all. And I know initially there's a case, so I'm sure her lawyers told her not to. But even after that was behind us, she never did. And I can't understand why she didn't want to. And my lawyer, and I initially said to my lawyer, I want an apology from her. And he said, and he had a lot of experience with these sorts of cases, he said, you know, if you get an apology from her, it's not going to give you closure, it's it's just gonna give her closure. And it's not gonna help you, and you should just let it go. The funny thing is, there was a court case, and she couldn't even look at me in the courtroom. In fact, you know, the court never started on time. She would be in the hallway, and then her family member would pull her in right when the court started, just so she couldn't look at me at all. A very strange thing.
She she's like bigger with it. What happened?
You know, that's what they said. She was, you know, they checked her phone. She wasn't texting. She wasn't very old. They just said she fell asleep in the middle of the day, and I can't really get my arms around it, and I can't fully accept it because it just seems odd in the middle of the day. She had another driver too, who apparently cranked the radio because you could see she was drowsy. But why didn't he stop her? Why? No, she didn't even lose her license.
So, do you think like after like everything you went through, like including the driver, do you think you found closure and you're at peace with it, or do you think there's like still?
For me, you're saying?
Yeah.
You know, people have asked me that a lot. I don't think I have complete closure. You know, this isn't the life I want to have. I miss traveling. I miss so many things that I love doing. But I've also made peace with it. So maybe it's not quite closure, but I've made peace with it, is the way I would describe it.
I think you have a great mindset. How long did it take from the accident to kind of get to kind of being like a motivational speaker and having such a good mindset?
Well, the accident happened in the end of 11. It took me a couple of years before I started moving forward, and I started a business. In 2016, so that's a little more than, it was 4.5 years, I did a TEDx about my story. And a TEDx is I don't know, it's where you do a story for about 15 minutes, and it's on video. And I talked about my migration and my story coming from my accident to starting a business. So it's an evolution, it's a process. One more question, come on.
Did it hurt when you fell down? When you fall down from the cliff, did it hurt?
Yeah.
Bad?
Yeah. It did hurt badly. You know, I was climbing, I was leading, which is more dangerous and more difficult, and you're dependent on the pieces of protection you put in the rock to save you. And one piece didn't hold. So if the first piece had held, it would have been only a 25-foot fall. But because it didn't, it doubled the length of the fall.
Wait, like, how did you fall? Like, basically, like the person
I reached
falls-
up for a hold, and I dislodged a rock. And then I looked up, and the rock smacked me in the face, broke my jaw, and knocked me out.
Did you like fall and hit like the rock, or like the person like fell?
I didn't fall to the ground. If I had fallen to the ground, it would have been much worse.
Yeah.
He held me, so when he saw that I was falling, he held the rope tight, so it couldn't go any more than then the distance, double the distance between me and my last piece of protection.
After like going through like so many traumatic events and like and living through them, does it like change your perspective on life?
Yeah, it certainly changed my perspective on life in many ways. You know, once you have, I mean, Shir could say the same thing. Once you have a life-changing event where your life was at risk, you think about death and you think about life differently. And everybody's different. Everybody's going to react differently to it, but you want to do it with more force, more presence, more purpose, because you see how precarious it really can be.
Like, bottom line, it's kind of bad. Like, I kind of don't know how to fix it now. Because, like, I don't put in a lot of the work. Like, I want to, but then I don't end up actually doing it. I have any, like, tips that I'm actually putting in.
So look, everything I've done since my accident is so much more difficult for me, and yet I still do so many different things. I started a business, I'm still in sports, I'm speaking, I'm motivating people, and I'm thinking, Ron, if you had taken that same initiative and drive before your accident, it's unbelievable what you could have accomplished. So if you can take some strength and some ounce of strength from what I'm telling you and how much you can achieve, even with all these disadvantages, and put that strength into anything you want to do while you're still 100% physically able to do things, you can do anything. I really do believe that. You can do almost anything if you put your mind to it. And if you can take that as the biggest takeaway, if this guy in a wheelchair can do all this crap, what am I complaining about? And why can't I give it my all and live your dreams?
Thank you.
Do you have any goals or something that you want to do master in the future?
Yeah, I always have something else. I'm writing a book, and I hope to finish that. I want to speak in front of more groups, not just schools, business groups. I speak to seniors, students, business leaders, all kinds of things. I have ideas for 2 other books that I want to write in combination with some other people. And I'm like, this is it. I might as well do it.
Anything else? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.